Randomly with Ronnie Jr.
I'm here with Valery Ortiz, actress at the moment. And the only reason I say at the moment is because she does have a lot of slashes as far as where I've seen her do great things with the hosting world and just even in production and television and all those things. But we'll focus on actress because of the Disney show. Valery, hello to you, first of all, and take it away with what your show is, how good it did right off the bat, and I believe it got picked up, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me all about your Disney or Disney Plus?
Disney, and I mean, I think we're eventually going to go to Disney Plus, and I get all these questions about that, but I'm like, I don't know, maybe because our first season just ended, so I don't know, maybe soon. But yeah, so it's called Gabby Duran and The Unsittables. And just a fun little fact about it, when I first auditioned for it, my role was a recurring role, which means that I wasn't a series regular. I'm not supposed to be in every episode. Like it's, I'll pop in here and there. And so when I went out for it, it was really like, well, first of all,
we got the time. Tell me.
I had a teenage daughter and I was like, I'm not going to get this. Feeling myself, thinking I'm all young. And so going in, whatever, obviously you always do as best as you can, but I just had that kind of an air of just like, and I don't think I
just didn't think the casting, you're like, I can't play a teenage. When did I have this girl? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. I'm like, yeah. And so, but it was a fun audition, whatever. Literally the day of, I hadn't even gotten home yet because it was in Hollywood. And for those of you that don't live in LA, like traffic's, and I'm sure you've all heard traffic sucks. So by the time I wasn't even home yet. I was supposed to turn around and go back for a chemistry read with the lead, played by Kylie Cantrell. And I was like, okay. And so went back in, did that. And again, you see other people in the room or like in the lobby. And I'm like, yep, probably won't get it, but whatever. Again,
this is just like looks alone and whatever. Yeah.
Looks
but you're
alone.
Still there and you were asked to come back, which is awesome. So there you go.
Hey, exactly. But I mean, again, I was just like, these other moms just look more like, not like in a bad way, but in like a cute Disney mom kind of way. I don't know. And I was like, I just feel like maybe I just will be too young. Then I found out over the weekend, which is something really rare. The casting director was so sweet. And she called my manager and she was like, I don't usually do this, but I just kind of want to let you know what's going on. Like they loved her. It's between her and another girl. The other girl actually lives in Vancouver. And the reason why things have slowed down on like why or not is because they're turning this role into a series regular role, meaning she would have to relocate to Vancouver. Well, would she be willing to do that? And I was like, I don't know. That's so crazy. But at the same time, like, I was like, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Like, right. Then I'll locate. If it's mine, it's mine, right? That's like my whole, I always have that, like feeling about things. So I was like, yeah, sure. And like 2 days later, and so then it's so tricky for people who don't know the industry, but when you test for a role, meaning like it's between you and maybe two other people, you sign like your contract, and back in the day, you would go into a room and do the same audition in front of like all of the execs and the studio, and sometimes like with another actor. So basically that audition I did with Kylie, where like I wasn't even 100% off book because it was like the same day. That tape they were going to show to the execs, and that was going to be my test. And I was like, oh my God.
Quick, very quick. Okay.
Oh, super quick. I was the last person to be cast. So they were like, okay, so if you're okay with it, they're going to test your video 5:00 Tuesday night. We'll let you know, whatever. And mind you, my audition had been on like Friday. So Tuesday night, I found out I booked it. You're so excited. Dude, I was on a plane Wednesday morning to Vancouver to shoot the pilot, like the next morning.
So once you said yes, it's like, let's change the game and go with it. And you're a series regular at that moment, or are you still on the fence of not knowing? No, you know it's.
Well, at that point, I knew I was going to shoot the pilot, and I knew if it got picked up and all that, like I would be living in Vancouver for 6 months,
That's
So
such a wild experience because when you're like doing your living in the Hollywood vibe and doing auditions, and you're like probably had plans with people on that following Thursday, and now because that's how it is, you're always like, oh, I'm doing this and doing that, and everyone who is in this, I won't say circle, but in that type of world, they know that stuff like what you say happens quite a bit actually, and because it doesn't happen a lot of the times, you just say yes, like you said, you just say yes. Well, that's amazing. Your character's name is Dina, if I'm not mistaken. All right, which I like because I like you as an actress, of course, but my mother's name is Dina, so kudos to you for really, embodying the Dina role. The thing about Valery is she, again, I'll get into hosting for a while, and I'll kind of find out where she fits with that as far as like passion. But I do think acting is really your thing. I mean, the role that you had, God, it was probably close to 10 years ago. 12 years ago on the N, which was like a Nickelodeon based type network. I mean, that was a big moment, I think, even for you as well. But that was playing in more like the teen
oh yes
programming. What was your big takeaway from doing shows like that back in the day?
Oh my gosh, it was the best experience ever. First of all, South of Nowhere was my first TV series, and I had just moved to LA, and it's such a beautiful thing, like perspective, right? And like being able to look back at things, because like I was new to here, I was new to LA. I had booked Date Movie first, which I am a huge J-Lo fan, and anybody who knew me knew that.
We gotta take a beat because her character was okay. I gotta take a beat. Her character was Jell-O, and her character had the biggest booty we've ever seen, and it was so good. I just, you know how much I love J-Lo. What is it that you love about her? Tell me, what's your big J-Lo?
My biggest thing about her is that there is no limits to her, right? Like she reinvents herself all the time, and she got so much flack for different things, like, oh, she can't sing good enough, oh, she's not that good of an actress, so this or that, and it's just, and she never cared, and she did her thing, and now, I mean, she just keeps doing, and I just love that. And of course, I just, because of her being Puerto Rican, and just kind of where she started, and her love of dance, and that was my first love, and there's just so many things I love about her, and obviously she's an inspiration, so I'm like,
so I say,
imagine, like,
huh?
I was gonna say, so you can imagine, like, when I got that audition, I was like, no way, and like I went all out. The right before, like, the scene that they give you,
Date Night's a spoof movie.
Date Movie, yes. Yeah, it's like those movies, and I haven't seen one in a while, but like Scary Movie, or wasn't it?
Yeah. Don't Be a Menace. All those kind of spoofy, even the Naked Gun back in the day. It's one of those types of movies. So you weren't playing J-Lo, but you were playing a girl who was a wedding planner who was not J-Lo, but she was Jell-O. It was fantastic. Loved it.
So my sides for that, my audition sides, the lines that I had to learn, the scene ended, and then like right below it said that like she busts up into a dance or whatever, but the casting director had like put a line across it, and then it says end. Basically what that means is you stop there and the scene's done. So I was like, no, I'm gonna like do a dance and like sing or whatever. So I totally just kept going when I did my audition, and then I like did this little choreography and whatever, and I kind of feel like that sold it, because I just was a fool. But I was working at Hard Rock Cafe when I got that role, and my manager called me as a hostess, sits people down and stuff, and she called me to tell me I got it, and I like lost my shit, and I was like, ah. And then shortly after that is when I had my test, like I was talking about earlier about Gabby Duran, that was in front of execs and stuff for South of Nowhere. But what happened South of Nowhere is I was filming Date Movie, so I was late to my test, and they knew it, like everybody knew I was working, whatever, and they're like, just drive over there, sign your paperwork, it is what it is. So I did that. I met all these execs, and I didn't do my audition. And then I drove home, and my manager was on throughway with my agent, and they're like, oh, so how'd it go? I was like, I mean, it kind of just didn't. I didn't do anything. And so I felt crappy, because I'm like, oh, like that looks terrible, so unprofessional, you were late. And they were like, well, you got it. And I was like, what? And so I feel like now looking back, that's so crazy. Like just how quickly it all happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't even test for these execs in person. And then the rest is history. And
Val, around what age are you at this time?
I was 19.
Okay. Because I think it's interesting to have these big moments at certain stages of your life. Like it always feels great if certain things, I think any of us have had like good moments happen along the line. It's not a straight line. It's a little bit of peaks and valleys, but it's always, for you, as far as who I know of you, you've always been able to maintain composure. Like a 19-year-old getting these breaks, you see some stories, people can really go into different places, but you've always held it together really nice, which is cool. But I think when you get these roles much later, like this Disney show, it's even more gratifying for some weird reason. I don't know. I always feel that. I feel it's really, when you get consistency in this game, it's pretty awesome. Well, I'm excited about the TV show. We must talk a little bit about your TV hosting moments, because there's a lot of them. Tell me, what is the difference between your acting side, like you said, dance, and even your hosting side? Like, where does that fit into your personality? Why, when you did you do it for so long, and why did you love it? Which I know a little bit of the answer, but I want to hear you talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so hosting and acting, I mean, there's a vulnerability to both, but I feel like with acting, if people don't like your character, that has nothing to do with you, right? Like there's that little piece in your head that you're like, well, that's not really me, whatever. Hosting, it's all you, it's your personality, it's how you connect with whoever you're talking to, or how you connect through the camera into someone's living room, right? There's just something very special and different about it, and I love people and I love all that, but it was scary. But I started in Florida on a TV show called Splat, and it was live. It was with kids, and that I feel like really got me ready in a weird way. And I'm all about timing and how things work out, right? When it's supposed to. And to do a live show with kids, and it was Nickelodeon, that preps you for anything, like anything hosting. So that happened. And actually when I did that show, that's the reason why I moved to LA, because I wasn't able to go back to college because that contract got extended, blah, blah, blah. I did a road trip to LA and I ended up here. But I don't know. Hosting is just, I love that it's more with people and for people. It's like one-on-one.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's like when people ask you if you like theater, like live theater or film, TV film. It's like you can't even compare. That's how I feel about hosting and acting.
Well, and I think that they all help a different skill set. So like my bigger thing, and I've said this before, was like radio, but I remember taking like four rounds of improv class. It wasn't like I ever wanted to move on into the world of improvisation, although I liked it, but it inherently made the radio work easier. So no. That's why it's always weird when I introduced you. I'm like, do I define her as an actress? I mean, I feel like that is your thing, but no, she does host and dance and all that stuff. I loved the hosting experience that we got to work upon. I was on the production team for, the series American Latino TV. And when Val took that show over, the previous host was Daisy Fuentes. So you were coming off some pretty big shoes. Like, growing up in the 90s, like everyone kind of looked to Daisy Fuentes as like, she was stylish, she was fashionable, but she was also really good and a businesswoman. And then we have Valery, just really make a name for herself within even that show. And American Latino TV is a program that, 4-minute segments, they were all very inspirational, docu-style. And it was always important for that host, which was Val, to kind of get the meat and potatoes of what the segment we were about to see kind of tossed to that. And Jesus, you did it such a good job. That was always so fun seeing you work with it.
That was my first job. Working for LA TV was my very first job here in LA. It was with LA TV Live, then LA TV Hollywood and whatever, but still in that same building, the same network. And I just hold all those memories so dear because it's something that I just loved.
Yeah. Talk about the consistency. Like what has been some of the obstacles you've faced in your life? We talk about the young stuff in Florida and then coming to being a fresh-eyed, LA girl and some opportunities. Has there been some moments you want to share that have been a little more rough on that journey and a little bit more like, where you have to second guess yourself, you've always been a
Yes.
kind girl, but you definitely still are human. Tell me some about that experience.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned before, when I came here, everything happened for me so quickly with my series, with the movie first, then my TV series, did 3 seasons of that. And it just went so fast. Then after that show, I did a couple recurrings, couple guest stars. Then I got another show called Hit the Floor, and that was on VH1. Did 3 seasons of that. Did some guest stars, recurrings. I was simultaneously working on American Latino, or if before that, like KTLA type whatever network, but something hosting. Regardless, I did ABC Family Lounge. So I was just always working, always on TV, always doing something I loved. Then Hit the Floor ended for me. And simultaneously, I was going through a divorce. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And some people do. But that was the hardest time of my life, because it was almost like, and American Latino ended as well for me. And so it was like everything that I kind of had identified myself with was done, like the actor, the host, the wife.
Yeah.
And I was like, and a lot of times I always had a problem with this before. And because of this experience, it almost highlighted it when people define you for what you do, and sometimes you do it to yourself, right? Like, I'm this actress, or I'm this host, or I'm this doctor, I'm this lawyer, like, and I always felt like, I'm like, that's my job and that's what I do, but that's not who I am, right? And that time in my life was just kind of like a huge light on that whole mind, I don't know if I can curse on here, but mind FUCK, of like, of like, what is going on? Like, who am I? What do I want to do? Who am I outside of all these things? So I had to really like just kind of find myself again, right? And just really dig deep into what I like, who I am outside of all these different things.
Yeah, and with that quietness too, you
Mm.
not only are feeling like, oh my God, it's so quiet. Those were the things that sort of defined me. While I loved them, they were a definition. You also are in an industry where youth is important. Unfortunately, gosh, probably harder for you women, of course, which is, again, unfortunate. So you really got to kind of look at, I always think, I will say, admittingly, guys, we kind of take that for granted. Like, I think there's a little more leniency with our time clock as far as like,
Sure.
you're either booking or you're not booking. Whereas for women, it's unfortunately challenging. So I feel like you were going through all that. And while you are, of course, just as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as I've always known you to be, there are probably those moments you're sitting in that room quiet, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like, what does that look like booking? Because now, I can't book the teen roles, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm so glad Disney came when it came. And I was like, remember reading in the trades that like it got picked up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, that's not the show that Val is on. So that was really exciting. And then I go to your Instagram, and then like you posted, and I was like, oh my gosh, couldn't happen to a better person. And the best thing about you is working with you has always been fun. Like, man, she behind the scenes, to what I've seen, it's just the one job we've worked together. But no, you real cool. You were cool to work with. And you did those little subtle nuances where you would just ask people about them, which doesn't happen a lot. A lot of times you're at work environments, and this is across the board. This could be you working at the CVS for all we care. A lot of people talk about themselves but don't listen, and Val will always try to listen and ask questions, and I always thought that was very sincere. Val, I want to ask you, what do you think as far as entertainers? We talk highly about J-Lo, but what entertainers are out there, performers, singers, whatever you want it to be, actresses, that are doing it right? Because this business has peaks and valleys. I look to like a Rosario Dawson type who hits every different type of role, which is very important. I like that a lot, philanthropic, and also a level head. Who are some of the people that you look at in this industry that you're like, they got it going on, I like the way they move? Yeah, tell me about that. And then I also want you to tell me people that you think are sort of letting the industry kind of take them over and, kind of lost in the sauce, so to speak.
Lost in the sauce. I like that. Man, I recently watched the is it the newsroom? No, wait, what's it called? with Reese Witherspoon.
Oh,
Um,
well, she's on Big Little Lies, but then she's on another one with
uh,
Kerry Washington.
right. I saw that. That's the fire one. Something
Yeah.
about some fires. But no.
Oh, she's on Good Morning with Jennifer Aniston.
Show.
Yes.
The morning show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So recently watched that, and then she has the fires one. Then of course, yeah, all the other things that she's been doing. And she was never somebody on my radar ever. Not. I mean, she's adorable, and she's done some cute films and stuff. But I just, after watching all these different things, and then I've started following her on social media, and like, she's just somebody that just randomly came into my radar of like, oh, I really respect you and I like what you represent. So that, like, as soon as you said that, I don't know why she came into my head. Obviously everybody knows I love J-Lo. Who else? Like, I don't know. I can't really.
Yeah. Well, it could be one person. I mean, the reason I asked specifically is because, you know, the thing about it is it's not as, you know, the consumer, let's say, who's just watching it on the couch. Sometimes they don't realize like all the hard work that's put into like Mandy Moore's, you know, cultivating that career. Like that's why it's inspiring to me. So when I talk to people like you, I want to know, pick your brain as far as like, who do you look and say, wow, they've really managed to continue to do it. And it's not just about success, because it's also about, you know, your reputation. And so there's some people out there, and I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. And again, unfortunately,
actually, that you even said, like Mandy Moore, Sandra Bullock, I love her and her career. And she's kind of like, you don't really hear too much about her. Not that it matters if you do or you don't, but there's something about her and her style that I don't know, I just really like. And Mandy, she's from Florida, and she's had her ups and downs with her career, with her acting or music or lack thereof, or, you know, people where'd Mandy go? And she's
hard pressed to find somebody who's only had, you know, an accelerated career and not be a jerk. You know what I mean? So these are the conversations I enjoy. Do you see anyone out there that's like you're that's just really not doing it right, and maybe needs a moment like that moment you had where you had to like sit down and think it through and redefine? Who out there you think is not really?
I don't have a specific person. The only people I worry about are just the younger people who get thrown into the business at an age where they could be learning more about who they are outside of, again, their work and their developmental stages, and some teens or young kids take it with stride and they stay super humble and all that. And then I just feel like others, it's just, they're a little bit more susceptible to kind of, I don't know, getting a little bit lost in that bubble of the yes man, right? Of everybody being like, oh, you want this? Yes. Of, you know, you think this is that? Yes. You know, and that to me is, and even like being on Gabby Duran and The Unsittables, I watch these kids and they're so talented and they're just, I like love them. I feel like I'm their mom. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about, is watching them grow and then seeing how talented and how humble they actually all are. And it's exciting to see. I love talent in general. So it's exciting to see talent cultivate at such a young age and kind of see like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see where this is going to go for you. And I hope it, for their sake, you know, continues on that like humble, healthy path. And I think
that's pretty cool. That means you're going to be inherently like a mentor towards them. You know, you guys are in it now, but 10 years down the road, when these actresses, is it any young actors on the set, or just all? Yeah.
So 2 young boys and 2 young girls.
Okay. When they all are 10 years from now and they're in their 20s or whatever, like you'll always sort of have that mentorship, and I think they'll value that. Does Val ever talk about wanting to have children?
I can't wait.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. All right.
Yeah, no, I cannot wait. Which is, again, when you were talking about like timelines and women, I was thinking about that when you say that. It's not only in a career, it's also families. And, you know, like when relationships end at a certain age, you're like, you know, but I'm like, you know, this old.
This wasn't the plan.
Exactly, right? We always have this master plan. No, I cannot wait to have kids. I love kids. I'm not going to, during, you know, certain times in my life, I'd see my friends with kids and I'm like, you know what, I'm okay right now. I don't mind not having any kids. But I definitely can't wait for that when that comes for me.
I don't know if you said, you know, the Puerto Rican family. I don't know if they ever give you pressure with the kids, but I also want to know, did the family, like, had they assessed when you were super young that like, oh no, Val's not like staying here. She's going to go LA, Hollywood. She's going to act, sing, like, was ever, you know how we have those like traditional fabrics of like, you know, staying more local and doing all of these other things. Were they pretty open with your decisions to do a creative career, or did they come with any resistance of college or whatever? I don't know.
So the funny thing is I came on a road trip. So the idea of me ever staying in LA to do what I'm doing was never in the picture. So I always say, had it been planned, had it been like, oh, I'm gonna move to LA or blah blah blah, it would have been like, yeah, right. And even I would have been like that, because I would have given myself so many excuses of like being alone, or, you know, not having mommy papi or whatever. I don't have any family out here, right? So that I would have talked myself out of it. And so with I grew up with the most strict parents. The culture whole thing was huge for us, and it plays a part into who I am a lot. But the kids thing, dude. Okay, so my dad, speaking of people who were strict, he was the most strict. Like, I wasn't allowed to shave my legs, paint my nails, cut my hair, pluck my eyebrows. Like, it was. So he was that guy, right? And now at the age where I'm at now, he's just a teddy bear, and he's all like, one day he said he was gonna adopt his own grandchildren. I was like, okay, thanks, Dad. It's so funny to me. I love it though. It's just, but that little baby pressure, I would have never in a million years thought it would have come from him, especially about like kids and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's there.
Well, I think sometimes people, like parents, they'll grow with the child, you know, like he was probably so strict when you were 14, 13, just setting those boundaries. And I always remember the kids that you were growing up with that, like, you know, just the littlest things, you know, we always knew growing up that like, you couldn't just do what you wanted. Like, let's say the coolest thing was like a pierced ear or like a certain haircut or hair color, even like, you know, California is where I grew up and everyone's, you know, sun in or whatever it was. We always, no, the way I grew up, we were always not guaranteed to be able to do those things. We had to like get the permission. So I kind of have that strict similarity, but I think as you cross over and become like a 19-year-old and a 25-year-old, you know, that parent, you know, grows with you a little bit. So your pops is probably very like, well, you know, she's done her thing. Did you have any romantical scenes on Hit the Floor on VH1? Because that one was that was a little more of a hot and steamy
grown show. So my love interest in season 1 and the beginning of season 2 was with Dean Cain. So a lot of people are like, oh, you got to kiss Superman and blah blah blah. And Dean is amazing and that professional and just super funny. But that was kind of like a really interesting, fun thing within like the family and friends, because they thought it was like so cool that I was with Superman. Nothing further than that, you know.
yeah. Well, no, it's just, you know, I was like, oh, Val's on a grown show. We love it. That show though, how do you describe that show? I feel like it's probably fun to make. But I'm wondering what it felt like as far as the show finding its audience, changing networks is what I believe it did. And also, you know, since we're being so candid and open, you know, there was a tragedy with one of the cast members. I'm assuming, you know, I just want to know what your take was with that entire experience, because it felt like such a show that was destined for so much success. And, you know, I think it had, 3 seasons total?
3 seasons on VH1, 1 season on BET.
Okay.
I think
still a success, but I want you to kind of explain that time.
That time was awesome, to be honest. I was late 20s, and the show was about a basketball dance team, a la like the Laker girls, scripted. And it was super fun. I loved every minute of it, obviously. And what I liked about it when I compare it to the show I'm on now is the friendships and like everybody was kind of in the same time, like the same age range and the same kind of time in their life. So we all kind of like clicked and related to each other. Yeah, the tragedy, that's all insane. That's weird still to even
Yeah.
think about, and all the things that came from it. And as far as it's changing the network, so they had 3 successful seasons on VH1, and my character passed away. Sorry, spoiler. And so I was done after that. So I didn't even continue when it went to BET. I feel like the focus changed a lot, especially once it went to BET. Which I guess I'm not too surprised anyway, because now they're kind of catering it to a different audience, and the cast changed. And of course, you have the fans that I'm like, want this person or this person, because not everybody went to the 4th season, obviously I didn't, but other people didn't either. So it was different altogether in good and bad ways, I feel like, for the fans. But our show creator, James LaRosa, is brilliant and fun, and he was like a papa bear for everybody in the family. He treated the crew and the writers and producers and his actors all the same, and I think that show had a huge example of that, on how kindness and like caring for people starts at the top.
Right.
And in South of Nowhere too, I haven't had any show where it doesn't, but it just, for some reason, that show sticks out in my head, in my brain, for that specifically.
Yeah, it there was a lot of excitement around it. I remember I did some co-hosting online work with Kat Bayless, and Kat Bayless was on the show, and then some of the freaking cast members have went on to do fantastic things. Like, it just is a show that like sometimes doesn't get talked about. I don't want to say it doesn't get its respect, but people forget about it. But there's a lot of greatness to it. So, and of course,
it did its thing for like the people, I mean, who are into those kind of shows. It's kind of soapy and whatever. It had its
very soapy. The pilot was soapy.
Yeah, and a lot of people like that stuff. So I feel like if that was your thing, your entertainment, and you like dance and like half naked sexy men and women, like you were in.
Yeah, maybe it'll end up on Netflix and do really well. Who knows? I was wondering though, you never did. You were the one cast member who wasn't on the dance team, but you said you grew up with the thing of dance. Was that just a character thing that has nothing to do with you not wanting?
So I did make it on the dance team. So the first season I didn't, because I wasn't good enough, whatever. And then the 3rd season, which was my favorite, I've never died on a show. So that was like so tragic. And by the way, I knew from the beginning and nobody else knew, and I wasn't allowed to tell them. So that, I mean, talk about like, that was so hard. And I was like, so hard. But Raquel gets back on the dance squad, and I got to dance with these girls. And as an actor, I was like, so now I got the dance thing out of the way. I was like, I want to do a role where I can sing, a la Selena, and J-Lo playing her. It was the most fun. I got to learn this choreography. It was hard, and it was a lot of work, but I've never had so much fun. And I had a stunt double, and she was fantastic, and she helped me so much, like outside of rehearsals and stuff, and we would go into the studio and practice, but they never had to use her, which was like the coolest thing. And the best compliment I got from one of the writers was that she came to set to see one of the dances being filmed, and she's like, I didn't know where you were. She's like, I couldn't pick you out. And she's like, and that says a lot, because that means you're blending in with the team, with these professional dancers. And I couldn't be like, well, there's Valery, like half a step later, So I was really proud of myself, because I really worked hard, and it was important to me. And I felt like, yay, I did it.
I could imagine your training regimen, like everything you do is pretty much on point. Like I anticipate you being somebody who takes that time, not necessarily to like meditate, but you take time to to like schedule out your day. You do so it's not a surprise that like when this came, you were like, okay, I'm nervous, but like we're gonna go. Any last comments? And then I have one last question. Anything else you want to just kind of say or put out there in the universe?
Nothing other than I love this. I think it's a beautiful time that we're in just life, where somebody like you who's been like on all kinds of platforms will take the time to like interview me on something like this, and it's more intimate and just like accessible. And I think, I don't know, that's what a cool time to be alive, right? That we could do something like this. And so thank you.
It's intriguing to me, and I think people will enjoy it. Obviously, like I said, there's other forms of content, some of which are a little too young for my taste. And so I remember growing up, like the two shows that I loved so much growing up as a teenager was like anytime Behind the Music came on or anytime True Hollywood Story came on, even if I didn't necessarily like love the talent, that first chunk of 20 minutes was the coolest thing ever. Once it got to like the 30-minute mark and you already like were seeing the person winning the Grammys or whatever, I was like, okay, well, we know that story. But I was always intrigued with the like, how did they get there? I mean, look at you. You know, people will be like, oh, she definitely was coming to LA and to stomp her career. Lo and behold, that was sort of a travel trip accident thing, which, you know, a gift to the world. So that has always been intriguing to me. And heck yeah, why not do it now? And find some cool people. So you were one of them. So thank you. Okay, so my last question is just typically saying, what do you like about J-Lo? Which is going to be not work. I'm going to have to reword it because for everyone else, that's what they get. But since you like her already and we talk about her so much, I'm going to say, what J-Lo project do you think inspired you the most?
Oh, man. What J-Lo project inspired me the most? That's so hard. I think right off the bat, I'll say Selena, and I guess that might be a given because of the time that it came out and then what she did. And again, she got so much flack for it in the media, and then she just killed it. And what a beautiful story and homage to Selena. That has to be my favorite to kind of start it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many, so that's so hard.
I know, and I typically don't do the most thing, but I'm like, since you're such an aficionado like I am, I'm like, she'll probably have a really good answer if I tighten it up. And let me tell you, the reason I know you're into her, and this is not a joke, like you really are into her, is because every time I go on Instagram to like a J-Lo picture, I feel like you've already been there or vice versa. I'm always like, I'll see this new image or this new product campaign or a new J-Lo TV show, whatever it is, and Val will already be in there in the comments, and I'm like, makes sense.
I don't know if anybody remembers this, and I still have a sweater from it, but like she used to have like clothes and shoes. Like I had J-Lo sneakers and like J-Lo clothes that like I have a sweater that I actually did the J-Lo Super Bowl TikTok challenge that I need to post, and I used my little sweater in it. But I'm like, I've had her perfume, like just all the things I love.
Could you imagine what type of role you would want to play if you ever got a chance to be in a film with her?
Her sister of some sort, maybe in some kind of like investigative something. You know, I really love a lot of things she's done, but I really liked, and of course now I'm gonna blank, the show that she did, the TV series, with dancers? No. It was a drama.
It was called Blue, something Blue. With
Shades of Blue.
Ray Liotta, yes, yeah.
Shades of Blue. I love that show. Like if I could have picked a role for me to play, it would be something like that. And so if I did something with her along those lines, that would be so fun. Yeah,
that was a good role for her because I think at least what was stated was she was more on the executive producer side originally. And it was just like, well, wait a minute. This is a role that has like a lot of meat and potatoes. And if you watch that show, you know, I watched it quite a bit. I think I fell off a little bit, but I definitely watched every single one of the first seasons. And it was different than what you would think. You know, it was procedural, but like it was also a lot of different things to it. She's fantastic. When I locate my favorite moment, I mean, obviously the Selena one is the set it off point. I also like the moment where I guess vulnerability is always big to me. I like the moment where she bounced back because like J-Lo's, you know, so successful and all the money in the world, you could do whatever you want kind of a thing. People forget, you know, you got feelings. And she oftentimes from her book and from the rock doc that she had called Dance Again, she talks a lot about how that Mark Anthony breakup, yet with the two kids, feeling almost, not my words, her words, feeling like a failure. When she expressed it in that way from the book and from the rock doc, I'm like, you could really feel it. You know, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I often think she's a robot. She just powers through. But, you know, like, yeah, that's quite embarrassing. Again, not my words. You know, you've lost the relationship. You got these 2 kids. What do I do now? And her ability to bounce back is what we love. So anyways, if people don't like J-Lo like we do, this is not the place for you, but that's how we roll.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I read that book when I was going through a lot of my things. And I felt that book so much. I was like, yes, girl, I know.
Yeah, because almost like she expressed the thing of like her own personal validation or something like that.
Absolutely. It's totally that. Yeah.
You know, and I remember so many times in my life, it's like, oh, we you know, you could be your worst enemy in that way and you'll talk yourself out of everything. So, yeah, I mean, anyone who tells me exactly what you had stated earlier, how like maybe her singing is not up to par, maybe okay, fine. Even if you want to say that, talk about the resiliency of this woman. So, and you know, people like you and I who are going to just be continuing this career, we need to have a source of, you know, inspiration. Why not? That's it, Val. That's it. That is it for me. Any last words or, yeah, I guess we're good.
Yeah.
Continued success on the Disney show. And I believe that hopefully that epic J-Lo sister role comes in the pike in 3 years.
Oh my God. That would be amazing.
Bye-bye.
I'm glad to see you. Take care. Mwah. Bye.